The notification came through at 35,000 feet. I was somewhere over the Atlantic, wedged into a middle seat with my neck pillow and a cold cup of coffee. Half asleep after 7 months of living out of suitcases in Dublin. My phone had just reconnected to the in-flight Wi-Fi, and the alerts started flooding in emails, missed calls, a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I figured it was junk. I plugged my earbuds back in and closed my eyes. I did not know my life was already gone. My name is Elena. I am 29 years old. I am a fraud analyst at a fintech company. And I say that not to brag, but because you need to understand the full irony of what happened to me. I spend my days building systems that catch financial criminals. I write the algorithms. I train the models. I have testified as an expert witness in 2 federal cases involving wire fraud. I have helped put people in prison. And my own sister stole $182,000 from me while I was doing exactly that work, 6 time zones away. Let me back up. 3 years ago, I bought a condo in Austin. It was a stretch. I had just turned 26. I had student loans, and the market was not exactly friendly. But I had saved aggressively for 4 years. I had a solid down payment, and I found a 2-bedroom unit in a building I loved, 15 minutes from my office. I remember signing the closing documents and crying in the parking lot afterward. Not sad crying. The other kind. The kind where you cannot believe something real and permanent now belongs to you. I named the spare bedroom the library, even though it had no bookshelves yet. Just a rug and a lamp and a cardboard box of paperbacks. It was mine. My sister, she is 4 years older than me, had been through a rough stretch around that same time. Divorce at 30, then a failed attempt at opening a boutique fitness studio, then a period where she was couch surfing between our parents' house and friends' apartments. I helped her where I could. I lent her money twice. I never asked for it back. I am not saying this to make myself look good. I am saying it because I need you to understand the texture of our relationship before what comes next. When my company offered me a 7-month rotation in Dublin, I spent exactly 2 days agonizing over it. It was a promotion, essentially leading an international implementation project, more visibility, a jump in seniority. I said yes. I told my parents. I told my friends. I told my landlord. And I told my sister, who by that point had stabilized somewhat. She had a job she seemed to like, a new apartment, and a boyfriend she talked about constantly. She offered to check on my condo while I was gone, pick up my mail, water the 2 succulents I had somehow kept alive for 18 months, make sure nothing looked wrong. I gave her a key. I trusted her. I landed back in Austin on a Tuesday in March. My flight was delayed. My luggage was last off the carousel, and by the time I got into the rideshare, it was past midnight. I was not looking at mail. I was not opening my banking app. I was staring out the window at the highway lights and thinking about my own bed. I woke up the next morning to 3 things. Sunshine through blinds I had missed for 7 months, the smell of the coffee I had set on a timer before I left, and an envelope on my kitchen counter that said, "Urgent mortgage statement, please review." I almost ignored it. I almost made the coffee first. Something made me open it. I stood at my kitchen counter in the same clothes I had traveled in, and I read the statement, and I read it again. And then I sat down on the floor. The balance on my mortgage was not what I left it. It was not close. What had been a clean, 30-year fixed at a rate I was proud of, had been refinanced. Someone had pulled out $182,000 in equity in a cash-out refinance. The new loan amount was on the paper in front of me. The date was 4 months ago. The closing had been done remotely, through a third-party notary service. My name was on the documents. I had not signed them. I sat on that floor for a long time. The coffee finished brewing and I did not get up. I was doing what I do at work when a fraud alert fires, and I am trying to understand the shape of it before I touch anything. I was building the map in my head. Someone had refinanced my home. That requires a notary. That requires identity documents. That requires someone who knew enough about my property to pull the title, initiate the process, provide a copy of my ID. There were not many people who had that kind of access to my life. I got up. I did not call anyone. I opened my laptop. I pulled my property records from the county assessor's website. The refinance was real and recorded. I pulled the lender information. It was a mortgage company I had never heard of. A smaller regional lender. I wrote everything down. Then I called my original mortgage servicer and told them I believed I was the victim of mortgage fraud and that a refinance had been completed without my knowledge or consent. The woman on the phone went quiet for a moment, then transferred me to their fraud department. They confirmed that a refinance had been processed. They confirmed that the closing documents had been notarized remotely. They asked me to file a written dispute and contact local law enforcement. I thanked them and hung up. Then I sat with my hands flat on the table and thought about who had a key to my apartment. Who knew my mortgage was paid ahead? Who knew approximately what equity I had built up because I had, stupidly, proudly, told my family about it at Thanksgiving. I thought about the 2 times I had lent my sister money and never collected. I thought about the new car she had mentioned on a video call in December. I thought about how she had said, very casually, that her boyfriend was talking about a destination wedding. I opened my banking app and looked at what had landed in my account from the refinance. Nothing. Not $1. The disbursement had gone somewhere else. I needed to find out where. Here is the part that people do not fully understand about financial fraud. It almost always leaves a trail. People who commit it are not usually professionals. They are desperate, or greedy, or both, and they make mistakes. They use accounts connected to real identities. They move money in patterns that flag. My sister was not a criminal mastermind. She was a 33-year-old woman who had watched too many real estate investing videos online and thought she had found a loophole. I spent the next 6 hours working. I pulled everything I legally could without a subpoena, public records, the notary's registration, the lender's NMLS information. I found the notary service that had handled the remote closing and noted that 3 complaints had been filed against them with the state licensing board in the last year. I documented every date, every dollar amount, every discrepancy. Then I called a real estate attorney. Not my parents, not my sister, an attorney. She was incredible. Inside 45 minutes, she had reviewed the documents I scanned and sent over, confirmed that the signature on the refinance closing package was not a match to my notarized signature on file from my original purchase, and told me we had a very strong case for fraud and forgery. She told me to go to the Austin Police Department and file a report that day. I asked her, "Who do I think did this?" She said, "You probably already know." I did. I drove to the police department. I filed the report. The officer taking my statement was thorough and kind and said that mortgage fraud cases like this were unfortunately not unusual, and that the forgery of notarized documents was a felony. I drove home. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 10 minutes. Then I called my mother. I did not tell her what I knew. I told her I was home from Dublin, that I was tired but glad to be back, that I wanted to see everyone soon. I listened to her voice. She was warm and chatty, telling me my sister had just gotten engaged, that the boyfriend had proposed, that there was going to be a party. She did not mention the condo. She did not ask how the property was doing. A woman who did not know anything would have asked something like that. My mother knew. I said all the right things and got off the phone. I messaged my sister. I kept it simple. "Hey, I'm back. Can we get dinner this week? I missed you." She responded in 4 minutes. "Oh my gosh. Welcome home." "Yes, absolutely. Thursday?" 3 smiley faces. A heart. I said Thursday worked great. Over the next few days, I kept building my case. My attorney connected me with a forensic document examiner who confirmed in writing that the signature on the refinance closing package showed clear evidence of forgery, inconsistent pen pressure, letter formation that did not match my authenticated samples. My attorney also found that my sister had used a scan of my passport, which I had emailed her years ago for a family trip we were planning, as the identity document submitted to the notary service. The notary service, for their part, had done a video verification call. Not with me. With whoever had pretended to be me on camera. My attorney said she had seen similar schemes before. She said the combination of a remote notary, a stolen ID scan, and a complicit or negligent notary examiner created enough of a gap for someone motivated to exploit it. She said my sister had likely researched this extensively before doing it. I thought about all the Sunday phone calls. All the times my sister had asked, just conversationally, about the Austin real estate market, about interest rates, about whether I was thinking of selling. She had been studying the architecture of my life for months. Thursday came. My sister chose the restaurant, a nice Italian place near her apartment, that I had never been to. I got there first. I sat in a corner booth and I ordered water and I watched the door. She came in looking exactly like herself. Highlighted hair, a blazer she had probably bought at a sample sale, the big smile she has always had, the one that has gotten her out of trouble since we were kids. She saw me and her whole face lit up and she came over and hugged me hard and said she had missed me so much. I hugged her back. We ordered drinks. She told me about the engagement, about the ring, about how he had proposed at a rooftop bar on New Year's Eve. She showed me photos. I said everything was beautiful. I asked about the wedding timeline. She said they were thinking destination maybe Italy, maybe Mexico, probably next fall, which meant they needed to start saving aggressively. I let the word hang there for a second. Saving. Then I put my phone on the table between us. On the screen was a photograph of the refinance closing document, showing my forged signature. She looked at it. The smile did not disappear all at once. It went slowly, the way light goes out of a room when someone draws the curtains. She said, "That is not what it looks like." I said, "Tell me what it looks like." She said that she had needed the money urgently, that her studio debt was still hanging over her from the failed business, that she had planned to pay it back before I got home, that she had used the equity like a short-term loan, that she was going to fix it. She said she had panicked. She said she had not been thinking clearly. I said, "You forged my signature. You used a fake version of me on a video call. You fraudulently refinanced my home and took $182,000. She said, "I am family. You have to give me a chance to make this right." I said, "I already filed a police report." She went the color of the tablecloth. Then she said the thing I had been half expecting and half dreading. She said that our parents knew, that our mother had told her it would be fine, that our father had said that I had more than enough and would understand once the dust settled. I paid for my water. I left. I called my parents from the parking lot and told them I knew everything. That the police were already involved. That an attorney was already engaged. And that if either of them had touched or moved a single document, or talked to my sister about getting their stories straight, that would be obstruction, and they needed to understand that. My father said, "You are blowing this completely out of proportion." My mother said, "She is your sister." I said, "I know." I got in my car and drove home. Over the next 3 weeks, the picture filled in completely. My attorney filed a formal fraud complaint with the lender. The lender's own legal team, facing significant liability for processing a fraudulent refinance, moved fast. The notary service that had facilitated the closing was already under investigation by the state licensing board, and their cooperation was quick once law enforcement was involved. The detective assigned to my case was a woman named Flores, and she was thorough in a way that impressed even me. She traced the disbursement from the refinance. The $182,000 had gone into an account in my sister's boyfriend's name, one that my sister had signing authority on. From there, $68,000 had gone to pay off the remnant debt from the failed fitness studio. Another $45,000 had gone toward a down payment on a property my sister and her boyfriend were trying to purchase together. The rest was distributed across various expenses over a 4-month period. A car payment, a deposit on a venue, a luxury vacation in Mexico, the engagement trip. My sister was charged with mortgage fraud, forgery of a legal instrument, and identity theft. Her boyfriend, who had known about the account and the funds and had not reported anything, was charged as an accessory. The notary examiner who had conducted the video verification call, who had been flagged twice before for sloppy verification practices, lost her license and faced her own civil liability. My parents were not charged. Detective Flores explained that they had known after the fact, but there was insufficient evidence to prove they had actively participated in the planning. I heard this, and I felt something complicated and heavy that I have not fully named yet. The lender, facing a clear-cut case of fraud in their own origination process, worked with their title insurance carrier to unwind the fraudulent refinance. My mortgage was restored to its original terms. I did not lose the $182,000 in equity because the lender's exposure meant they had every incentive to make it right. This is something I want to address directly, because I have seen the confusion in comment sections about stories like mine. Title insurance, the policy that is typically part of any real estate closing, protects the lender against exactly this kind of fraudulent title claim. The lender had their own policy. That policy meant they had coverage for the fraudulent origination. That is why I did not have to pay back a fraudulent loan. The lender's insurance carrier absorbed the loss while the lender pursued recovery from my sister and her boyfriend through civil action. The criminal case and the civil case ran on parallel tracks. My sister could not make restitution. The $68,000 used to pay off her old business debt was gone. The venue deposit, the vacation, the car gone. The property down payment was clawed back through the civil proceeding before the purchase closed. There is a judgment against her now that will follow her for a very long time. She pled guilty in November. She was sentenced to 30 months in federal prison, suspended to 18 months with supervised release, plus restitution requirements that will take years to satisfy at her current income level. Her fiancé pled to a lesser charge and received probation and a fine. The engagement is off. I know this because my mother mentioned it in the one conversation we have had since, when she called to tell me that everything that had happened was a tragedy for the whole family and that she hoped I could find a way to forgive. I asked her if she had told my sister to stop before it happened. She was quiet for a very long time. I told her I needed space and I ended the call. I have not spoken to my father since the night in the parking lot. I do not know if that will ever change. I have been in therapy for 4 months now, working through what it means to discover that the people who were supposed to protect you had watched someone dismantle your life and decided protecting their other child was worth more. My therapist is patient and brilliant and does not let me avoid the complicated parts. One of the things I have had to sit with is the question I keep seeing from people who hear stories like mine. Why did she think she could get away with it? My sister is not stupid. She knew I worked in fraud detection. She knew I would come home eventually. I think the answer is the same answer it always is. She did not believe the consequences were real until they were standing in front of her. She had been bailed out before by me, by our parents, by circumstance. Every time something went wrong, someone caught her. She had learned, over 33 years, that the net would appear. The net did not appear this time. My condo is still mine. The mortgage is back to what it was. The library room has actual bookshelves now. I put them up the weekend after everything was finally resolved. As a small, deliberate act. A reclamation. I went to the bookstore and I picked out 12 books I had been meaning to read and I carried them home and I put them on the shelves and stood in the doorway and looked at them. I cried in that doorway the same way I cried in the parking lot 3 years ago. Not sad crying. The other kind. I want to say something to anyone watching this who is in the middle of something similar, who is looking at a document or a bank statement or a piece of paper that doesn't add up, who is feeling the specific vertigo of realizing someone close to you has stolen from you. Document everything before you say a word to anyone. Call an attorney before you call the person you suspect. File the police report, even when it feels impossible. The legal process is slow and imperfect and sometimes maddening, but it is the only tool that actually works. And to the question, I know people ask whether it was worth it. Whether sending a family member through the criminal justice system is worth the fallout. I can only say this. She made that choice, not me. She sat across from the question of what was right and what was wrong, and she made her choice over and over for months. I made mine. I would make the same one again. There is a question I have been asked since I started talking about this, and I want to leave you with it, because I think your answer tells you something important about yourself. What is the one thing someone in your life could do that would permanently end your willingness to protect them? Leave your answer below. I will read every one. And if this story resonated with you, if you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with the architecture of your life, then you already know why I made the choices I made. You do not need me to explain it. Take care of yourselves.